And so I knew at a young age that I wanted to make sure I had enough margin in my life, financially speaking, that I didn't have to worry about wealth in the family. And what I'm saying here, it's not just finances, right? It's the ability to have freedom with your time, with your energy, to spend time with your family.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Today, we're talking with Brett Swarts, who is considered one of the most well-rounded capital gains tax deferral experts and informative speakers in the U.S. We know, we've heard him before, and that's why he's on Be Bold Branding today, guys. He's the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions and is passionate about educating high net worth individuals and capital gains tax deferral. It's a lot, right? You're going to need an expert for this. He's going to share his story, exactly who he helps, and why he does what he does. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, founder of BrandFace, where we help experts and influencers just like Brett differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
Hey guys, I'm Michael Carr. I was a BrandFace client almost 8 years ago, and the principles made my company so successful that I became a partner in the company today. And we are now the most comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe. We like to welcome a big, bold brand. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Brett. Foremost authority and deferred tax. I love it.
Michael and Tanya, thanks for having me. Excited to be here, add some value to you and your listeners.
Yeah. Listen, man, my grandpa was a small businessman in a small town north of Atlanta all the time. And I always got a kick out of him, especially when I was young. He was very, very lively personality. And people would be like, hey, the bill is X, come out plus the tax. And he would always say, we don't need any tax. We'll glue it on. And so feel free to use it, Brett. Feel free to use that all you want when you're saving people millions of dollars in tax deferred.
I like that. That's like my Texas one, right? I said I've never met someone from Texas that I don't like. I've also never met someone from Texas who wants to pay tax. You know, we just did a big deal in Texas. It's like, you know, I'm in California. I said we're on the front. We're Taxifornia. We're on the front line of figuring out ways to keep more of our money in our pockets versus, you know, giving it to the government, and they may waste it away pretty quick.
I love it. Right. I love it. I do. I start off with a joke, Brett, but I really appreciate what you do and why you do it. It's very important for really anybody that deals in real estate, right? Not just high net worth. Those are great, obviously, and we have to keep that ball rolling. But really anybody, these are strategies that are important to anybody trading in real estate, correct?
Yeah, real estate, business, crypto, artwork, collectibles. In fact, we're doing more crypto deals than ever before. We just closed a $5 million crypto sale, and she wanted freedom from her W-2 big corporate tech job in the Silicon Valley. And she's in her 20s, and she bought Bitcoin for about $50,000 and went to $50 million. Okay. And so she never exited, and part of why is because of the tax. But guess what? She used the deferred sales trust, and we help her every step of the way defer. But the cool thing is she started a business venture with one of her college roommates. They're building their own dream. They're doing all tax deferred versus feeling trapped by the tax and maybe not exiting, maybe staying at the W-2 job. So that was one of our biggest one. But yeah, it works for real estate, businesses, crypto. We just did a dentist business sale for a guy out of married couple out of New Jersey, and they worked for 30 years as a dentist, and they sold for $1.4 million, and they're looking at a $600,000 tax. Mm-hmm. Well, that $600,000 tax can go a long way for helping them build in more wealth. And so that's what we're about.
I love it. Yeah,
I do too. So, you know, here on Be Bold Branding, it's about bold brands, right? And bold brands, we find without question, always start with some story. So I want to know how you got started in this profession, and was there a specific event in your life or a person in your life that shaped who and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with my parents, you know, growing up in real estate and having a lot of wealth at a young age, and seeing development, seeing cash flow, seeing entrepreneurialism, seeing a really good size. Things are going well. We're in the Bay Area. It's just missing San Jose, Fremont. And then things went from like really good to like parents got divorced and things went pretty bad, right? Financially speaking, that is. You know, my dad had a lot of wealth. My mom didn't. And let's just say My dad didn't share as much as he could have, right? I mean, we lived the majority of the time with my mom. And so I knew at a young age that I wanted to make sure I had enough margin in my life, financially speaking, that I didn't have to worry about wealth in the family and how that might connect. And so fast forward, I go to college, I start studying a couple of degrees, and I also take an internship at a place called Marcus and Millichap. And I knew my love for real estate and being an entrepreneur. I had a chance to sell real estate and kind of be a businessman. And that was really cool and exciting in 2006. And so things are going pretty good. I got some momentum going. The market comes to a crashing halt in 2008, and I found myself flat back on, place I'd never really been before, because I'm by myself with my wife and our baby daughter at home going, what am I going to do? How am I going to support the family? Weird. Like, you don't know like when the flashes of the divorce stuff comes back, but my parents were divorced when I was about eight years old. And all of a sudden I'm in my mid 20s and I'm going like, the financial like alert lights are coming on. And it's like, you start to wonder, like, am I going to make it? A, is this going to affect the marriage? B, like, what's going to happen here financially? And like the emotion starts to come up. And I remember sitting in my manager's office at Marcus and Millichap, and like, I'm not a guy who cries, but like, I just emotionally just it just all came out. I'm like, another deal fell apart. Another 1031 deal fell apart. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I go home, I remember sitting down with my wife, and I'm like, hey babe, like, we got a couple options to make. Like, I can go get a real W-2 job. And for those that don't know, commercial real estate brokerage is pretty tough. It's 100% sink or swim type of deal. You either make it or you don't, or you're out. I saw 50 to 75 guys leave in my first few years there, but I loved the business and I was determined to succeed. But financially, everything was going on. It was tough. And so she says, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, we got to make some sacrifices. We can move with my brother into a small condo. I can get a side hustle. And that's what we began to do. And so we moved into the small condo. I got a side hustle at a place called Cheesecake Factory. So I was going through this journey of financial and like career and like family all at once. And this struggle helped define basically where I'm at today, because guess what? My clients were going through that same struggle. And their struggle was a little bit different. I mean, they were multimillionaires, but what their challenge was, they were overpaid. They had overpaid for properties via the 1031 exchange, and they had taken on too much debt. They had not enough liquidity, and they felt forced to buy these deals, is what we came to find out. And now they're losing half or everything. And I remember sitting down with a guy, he's worth $50 million at the time in 2006, and we told him to sell. We said, sell. Now's the perfect time to sell. He goes, no, I don't want to do it 1031. I don't know where that's going to be. You have too much debt. Get out of those deals. He goes, no, I'm just going to hold. Well, in the next 3 years from 08 to 011, he lost everything. He went bankrupt. He lost his house. He lost all of his properties. And basically we assessed that the 1031 exchange is broken for a lot of people. And by the way, it doesn't work for it doesn't work for primary homes. It doesn't work for cryptocurrency. It doesn't work for business sales. And so my manager at the time brought in a gentleman to speak who's my business partner on the Deferred Sales Trust. And this is where like the light bulb moment went off. And I'm looking around the room going, is anyone hearing what this guy is saying? He's saying that we don't have to do a 1031 anymore. He's saying that people can escape. And like most people, we thought, too good to be true. But I was curious enough to continue to learn and open-minded enough to continue to learn. And that began the journey of just trying it out, asking people about it, asking CPAs about it, asking clients about it. And fast forward, my business started to grow. I was able to retire from the Cheesecake Factory, right? I was able to provide for my family. My wife's been able to stay a full-time mom. We've been married almost 13 years now, 5 kids, and she's never had to go back to work. And so that's part of the emotion that's behind this, is because I've seen the blood in the streets. I also experienced my own challenges financially. And now I'm here and I'm trying to provide this freedom for people as much as I can, using what I believe is the best way to do it, which is the Deferred Sales Trust. And so that's the story.
That's a great story.
Wow.
I love it. I love it. Because,
you know,
BrandFace, we do the same thing on our side. And the why like that, Brett, is so important, right? Because we were just on another show and we were talking about how our life experiences make us who we are. And, us optimists, it's really easy. Sometimes for other people, it's a little bit harder, but yet we all got to get there. You go through things in life to teach you something bigger coming. And it's all just a stair-step preparation for something you can do really powerful. And you're living proof of that. That's killer. That's awesome.
Your personal story always affects your professional choice.
Mm-hmm.
It truly does. And sometimes, many times, there's pain in there. It's
a motivator.
It truly is. It truly is. And when you share that story, it's like, okay, I get it. I totally get why you're doing this. And the why is the most important thing in business, the why.
You want to give us a little bit of the functionality of between the 1031 tax exchange and how the deferred sales trust works?
Yes, absolutely. So you guys remember going to Blockbuster on a Friday night? This is maybe 10 or 15 years ago, right? And you're like, I'm going to get that movie. And you're excited. And it's at the end of the aisle and it's behind that cardboard box. And you're walking over to get it and you see it, but right before you get there, somebody grabs it right before you, and you're like, oh shoot, I lost it, and you're bummed out because you're supposed to get that movie for your significant other, right? But even if you got that movie, you went home and 3 days later, you didn't return it, you got a fee. You didn't rewind it, you got a fee. Whatever, they put the wrong movie in there. Well, that's like the 1031 exchange, right? It's a very particular type of way of doing things that creates a situation where you're often doing what's called the shotgun wedding. And that's one of the worst parts about it. And that you don't necessarily want to buy the property, but you feel trapped or forced to do it. And the deal doesn't necessarily make sense, but because of the tax, you want to defer it. And so that 45-day engagement, 180-day shotgun wedding oftentimes makes it higher. Whereas the Netflix version or the deferred sales trust, there's no timing restrictions. In fact, you can sell high and buy low. And that's the number one reason I believe to use the deferred sales trust. And I'll give you a deal story for this that changed it for me. And this is, without this story, I'm about to tell you this actual evidence of this, I wouldn't be here. Okay. And this is the story. A gentleman in 2006 sold a $20 million asset in Minnesota, close to the Minnesota Vikings Stadium. And he is a very smart individual. This guy hates the stock market, makes all of his money in commercial real estate, and he's looking around for an exchange property. He's going, this makes 0 sense. I think something's going to happen. He didn't know 08 to the extent it was going to happen, but he goes, I am not 1031 exchanging. I'm either going to pay the tax or I'm going to take a leap of faith in this deferred sales trust that I had never heard of that seemed maybe too good to be true, but I'll take a look at it and I'll do it. So he did it. Put all this money into the trust, about $20 million, deferred all the tax, and then just waited patiently. And he put it into some conservative stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, which is kind of step number 2. It doesn't have to be like kind. So an investment 1031 Blockbuster has to be the equal or greater value of like kind real estate, right, which doesn't necessarily give you the diversification or the liquidity that the Netflix deferred sales trust does, and that doesn't have to be like kind. It can be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, hard money lending. It can be active or passive real estate. So he puts it into the stock market, very conservative stuff. 5 years later, the bank calls him up and he goes, hey, what's going on? They go, well, it's the bank. And like, yep, I remember you. Like, well, the bank says, we just foreclosed on that property, that you used to own, that you sold to that 1031 buyer. He's like, yeah, that crazy 1031 buyer from California who overpaid, right? Yep, that's him. Yeah, we just foreclosed. And we're just curious, Mr. Smart Guy who used the deferred sales trust, do you want to buy back this property? He goes, well, maybe. What's the cost? And they said 60 cents on the dollar. He goes, yes, give me a couple days. He was able to form an LLC. He was able to partner with his trust and buy back that property at 60 cents on the dollar. All tax deferred, not using a 1031. So my brain explodes. I'm going, what? This actually can work? You can actually do this? And the answer is yes. And that's what he did. And we've gone on to do that for clients, not to that extent of such high highs and low lows, but that whole idea of I can sell high and buy low changed it all. So that's optimal timing. So I'll pause there, see if you have any questions so far. And we can go into a few others as well.
No, I want to piggyback on it because it is being a real estate investor all of my life in the residential space, especially in light commercial, never anything huge commercial. But the 1031s have always scared me for the very reason you're talking about. Like I don't like the time restraints because I know how the market moves. I saw and was very active in liquidating so many of those assets that were lost. Especially in the residential sector of, we auctioned off 75% of the Bear Stearns residential portfolio. And I saw all these guys buying houses for like 20 cents on the dollar, right? I mean, it really got ugly and taking advantage of that. But the 1031 would have been devastating for 3 or 4 years. Like there was no way that you could have ever outran that 180-day mark because, if you started in 2008, by the time you got to 2010, you done lost another 20% minimum. So that's very interesting that there's another vehicle that people and investors can use for that. And then of course, crypto nowadays is one of the buzzwords, right? And the fact that you can use it in that also is big, as well as businesses, because, when you start to quantify, it's all the numbers, right? And when you start to quantify whether or not you should sell something, how much of that you have to hack to the government that did not help you make all the payments to be able to get there, it's a deal killer in a lot of ways. I've seen it kill all kind of development deals because people don't want to pay that. They and I don't blame them. They'd like, oh, I'll just let it sit, you know.
Exactly right. Couldn't agree with you more. That's why we're here. Yep.
Give us a couple more examples, because I know people are sitting out there thinking, okay, like I'm on the edge of my seat now. You've got me, Brett. Give us a couple more examples.
Yeah, we just did a primary home sale for a luxury home in Palo Alto, California. And this particular client of mine, he was selling, and his kids, six kids are gone. And he's like, house is huge and it's highly appreciated. And he's going, Brett, I want to move to Nevada. I want to be done. He's actually was like the #1 realtor in Palo Alto, luxury homes for like 25 plus years. And he's going, Brett, I had never heard of this. Like, this seems wild and crazy. But he had a CPA and about a year due diligence he did with us, and he did the deal. He's a client of ours. He moved to Nevada. He was able to sell. Without the trust, he would not have been able to afford to sell because of his tax. So it literally gave him freedom to relocate. Right. We have another client who did some Ethereum, and they're a married couple. They live in the East Bay, kind of near San Francisco. And they're looking at, they bought Ethereum for about 100,000, and they're looking at up to 13 million. So about a $12.9 million gain. He's working 50-hour weeks for a tech company. She's working 60-hour weeks as an attorney. They have two kids, and they're like, we want some freedom to travel, to do some other things. And they're caught in between. He wants to keep it and just let this thing ride. And she's like, I want to get out and be done, not have to work again. Like, let's not play games here, because it went from 100,000 to 6 million, then down to 1 million, and then up to 8 million, and then like to 2 million. It's just this wild roller coaster. Like, oh my gosh. The entire time they were like, well, we'll exit if we can find a tax deferral strategy. And so they're looking, can't find anything. 2017 comes along. It crashes again after that. And so they found us about 120 days ago, and they went through the due diligence. He's very technical, all the stuff, where they exited about 7.5 million so far, and they never have to work again. And I sat down with them, and they're like, Brett, what's kind of the returns on this thing? I'm like, well, usually about 8% net of fees is generally what we're speaking of. We can't guarantee, not a promise, but he goes, well, what does that mean math wise? I go, well, what's your number? Because he goes, 2 weeks ago, you told me it was 9 million, right? And he's like, oh, let me check. He gets his phone out, and he goes, it's 13 million now. I'm like, wait. In the last 2 weeks, it went from 9 million to 13 million. I'm like, okay, let's use 13 million. On 13 million at 8%, that's like almost double than what you guys are making. Like, you don't have to do anything anymore. Like, we can put it in conservative, the biggest companies in the world. You can put it into real estate. You don't have to ride this big wave. And so again, he didn't want to exit all of it because he believes it's the future, but we did exit 7.5. And so again, what I'm saying here, it's not just finances, right? It's the ability to have freedom with your time, with your energy, to spend time with your family. Tax is our biggest expense that we're ever going to have. And so if we can defer 30 to 50% on an exit of a highly appreciated asset, then we create freedom to give to more causes we believe in, freedom for our time to be able to give to our family more, freedom to start that next business venture. He wants to take that money, by the way, and not just put it into passive investments. He wants to start a crypto company and help cryptocurrency folks. He wants to serve that community. And so it's unlocking the ability to finance. I call it the go fund yourself. I had another client in Alabama. He sold a $2.6 million business, and he funded his multifamily 72-unit ground-up development deal. In fact, speaking at a conference this week with him and different things about this, but it's a way to defer, grow wealth, pass wealth, give wealth without having to give it all away to charity, without having to buy life insurance, without having to do a 1031 exchange.
So I do have to ask one more question before we get into the meat of your brand. Deferred, does it mean what it's supposed to mean as far as the Merriam-Webster dictionary? So deferred means eventually somebody's got to pay the piper type of a thing, or is it deferred through generational? And
yeah, great question.
Your great grandkid might have to.
So you can keep, the cool thing is your kids can inherit it and keep deferring it, right? And so, but as you receive payments back, you'll pay tax, ordinary income tax on the interest payments. And that's the key. The principal payments, most people don't dip into that principal. I call that the golden goose laying the golden egg. And so in the scenario of the client who put 7.5 million in, they're delaying the payments for a couple years. Okay. So this is cool. So check this out. They live in California. And if they would have taken all of that 7.5 million of the 13 million, they would have paid, I don't know, 2.5, 3 million of tax right around there. So instead they have the 7.5 million working for them. Number two, They're allowing the interest to accrue on top of it, like an IRA, right? You put it some to an IRA or 401k, you can let it accrue. Number three, they're not having to take that interest, so they're not paying any income tax or any capital gains tax. And then guess what? She may retire. He may retire from the job. In fact, he did retire from his job. He's done. She may retire from hers. Their income is going to drop lower. And then they're going to turn on the spigot on the trust that's going to, and so they're not having to pay as much tax because it's basically tax efficient. Okay. But they can pass it to their kids and their kids can pass it. But as they get income, they'll pay some tax. The cool thing we like to do is the kind of next level is have them partner with the trust, go buy a piece of real estate and get what's called depreciation. And they can do something called cost segregation, and they can accelerate that depreciation. And to the extent that the income is offset by the depreciation, you can receive some of that tax-free money out in a given year. So these are all like the ninja stuff that we like to geek out on and kind of break down with their CPAs and work with folks like that. But yeah, eventually if you dip into the principal, you will pay tax, capital gains tax. But this is why the government likes us, by the way. If you think about it, the government really wins here because I'm paying tax on the fees, they're paying tax on the income, but also all that money from, let's call it Ethereum or Bitcoin, somewhere in the world or the universe, we're not sure where it's at, right? It's been infused into the economy, infused to real companies, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, into real estate. It creates jobs. And this is why the government says, that $2.5 million, you still owe it to us, but we'll charge you 0 interest on that as long as you invest it into businesses. And when would we want to pay back a 0 interest loan from the government that we can live off the interest and pay tax on? The answer is never. Right. So we're going to keep that deferred and growing. But if they ever want to cut out and just pay tax, we can dissolve the trust and pay them back and they pay their tax.
Gotcha. That's really, really good. That's such a good tool, but because look, I'm not against taxes. Everybody should pay tax because we get services for those taxes, and we can argue whether or not the government is actually forthcoming and responsible with that. But that's a different show for a different day. But at the end of the day, none of us are required to pay 100% of the tax. This is why these things exist, and to take advantage of them as good, smart, prudent business people, utilize the tools and utilize the professionals that know those tools. We should talk about
the legal track record real fast because those who are wondering. So it literally has a perfect track record. Like if Michael got to the plate every time and just hit home runs, like that's what it has so far. Like it's just hitting home runs every time. 25 years, thousands of closes, billions under management. Artwork, collectibles, dentists, optometrists, orthodontists, Bitcoin, stock, collectibles, real estate, primary homes, and it got tested over 12 times, okay? And it's passed those IRS audits perfectly, not even a single change. So if Michael or Tanya or I got an audit, or we got an audit on our tax returns, what are the odds they don't find even a single thing? Like maybe 1 in 10 million, they're not going to find a single receipt that we forgot or something. I'm telling you, that's what the DST has done so far. Not even a single change. It's been perfect. Now, there's been 3 formal audits on top of that. They were like, you guys are getting so big. Let's take a look at this thing. All of those were no change. But there's only one law firm that's doing this, that has proprietary protected it. There's some copycats out there. You're going to be careful. You want to make sure that we provide lifetime audit defense. You want to make sure that the best are helping you with this. They have never lost a patient in the surgery, or no patient has gone to jail, right? They're perfect on it. But beyond that, there's a guy named David Young, which is really interesting. I don't know if you guys have heard of a guy named Bill Gross, but Bill Gross was one of the top financial advisors in the world, very well respected. He worked for a company called PIMCO. And he and David Young and about 4 guys built PIMCO about 20 years ago from $80 billion to $1.2 trillion. And they managed some of the biggest wealth in the world. Well, David and Bill, they retired from this big PIMCO company. David and about 4 of the other guys, they form a group called Anfield Capital, and they do a 2-year due diligence about 4 years ago in the deferred sales trust. And I like to say this gives me confidence because I could be saying it, but they're like, Brett, you're not a CPA or tax. You're like, I'm not, right? But David Young was a financial advisor, and he put his legal team on it. And for 2 years, they did due diligence, and they came back and they said, you know what? Not only is it we believe it's legal, but we'll put our name on this, right? We will roll it out. They'll become a part of the DST inner circle for advisors, and they will help to manage money. And so I always say, for those who are skeptical, and you should be skeptical and cautious with any new tax deferral strategy you're hearing about from anybody, even us, but I always say if it's good enough for David Young and his legal team, after 2 years of due diligence, and these are some of the smartest, best people in the world, world-class financial advisors and legal teams, is it good enough for you and your legal team? And the biggest thing for people is they go, oh my gosh, I've never heard of it. My CPA who I've trusted, who's helped me build my wealth from 0 to 5 million the last, 5, 10, 20 years has never heard of it. And now I'm entrusting somebody. And I always say to folks, like, the people who helped you to get from 0 to a million or 1 million to 5 or even 5 to 10 may not be the same people to help you exit. Right. And that's okay. Like that wasn't their specialty. It doesn't mean we don't bring them in, educate them. And oftentimes they just join us and they start sending us referrals. But that's the biggest thing, is I always tell people it's a no cost obligation. Like, bring everyone to the table. Let's all talk about it. You don't owe us anything if you don't do it. But oftentimes 9 out of 10, I'm telling you, people will see it. They'll see the evidence. They'll have their tax team look at it and they'll approve it. But it's getting over that false belief of you already know it's not going to work, or they would have known about it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. No, and that's really good advice, because, you want to vet that. Just because, however, and I got a killer CPA, right? I've got a killer corporate attorney. They're great guys. They're fantastic guys. If they haven't heard of it, they don't know. They're smart enough to say, hey, let's learn about it. And so that's what you want, because that's how you, like you said, that person that helps you get from 10 and beyond, they might not be the same people that help you get to the 10. So that's really good advice. I hope you guys are listening.
I hope so too.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we like to ask 5 questions from our guest about their brand. We've already been on your show, so, we know you a little bit right here. We know you're going to pass this with flying colors, Brett. So you ready? We're going to ask you 5.
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. What sets you apart from others in your industry?
Yeah. It's like, why choose me as the trustee? Because there are a couple trustees out there, by the way, and they all go to the same tax team. I like to say that I'm more than a trustee. And the reason I'm more than a trustee is because I have my commercial real estate background and I've done brokerage. And I was there where you were at right now going, oh my gosh, this thing it's so new. Like, I didn't know anything about deferred sales trust or tax deferral. Like, I didn't study to be a CPA. Like, I was a consultant. I understood numbers. I was good with people, and I was selling real estate. And all of a sudden I found myself in a situation where, like I said in my story, like, we had to figure out a way to solve the problem. And at the end of the day, like, I just love helping people solve problems. And I always say, I'm not in the business of selling real estate or the deferred sales trust. I'm just in the business of solving problems and working well with others. And I like to an analogy is the Rubik's Cube. And, Michael and Tanya might have this tax challenge, and their Rubik's Cube is all disjointed, all the different colors all the way around. I don't know if you guys have seen that competition. It's like a spelling bee competition, but it's a Rubik's Cube competition. Oh, yeah. And these kids are geniuses, and they, like, in 6 seconds, they like do this and they put it down. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so part of my passion is to take that Rubik's Cube and just help you to get a couple of the colors lined up a little bit. Right. And then we grab that cube and we pass it to the tax attorney team, and then he gets the colors lined up, and then he passes it to their CPA, and they might adjust it a little bit. And like, we all this together, we solve this problem. And it's something about working in teams. And so growing up, I played sports. I had the fortunate opportunity to play football in high school, basketball in high school, and then get a college basketball scholarship. And so I had the chance to play shooting guard and point guard. And I love, making the bucket as much as I like assisting. Yeah. And I love other people succeeding along with me. So I think my biggest trait is I can A, work great with others, B, know when to lead, and then I'll C, know when to follow. Like, know when it's not my expertise to step on something that the tax attorneys, the legal minds have. I'm humble enough to say, like, I don't know that thing. They do. And let's go find out. So those would be some of the reasons I would say choose me as your deferred sales trustee.
Perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
love it.
Question number 2. Exactly who do you serve? Who are your ideal customers?
Yeah, millionaires that are exiting highly appreciated assets. At least $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain per transaction. Okay, and these are doctors, these are cryptocurrency millionaires, these are business owners, these are commercial real estate syndicators, these are folks that have general GP interest, LP interest, carried interest. So it's just anyone that has a highly appreciated asset. Now, breaking that down even more, according to the American Bankers Association, there's about $32 trillion or so is the estimate now in other associations that's going to transfer from the baby boomers, which is my parents, to the millennials, which is me, right, our generation, and the next 20 years. And this is known as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. And so that amount of wealth, by the way, 50% of the wealth of total in America is tied to high-end primary homes, commercial real estate, and private equity, which is business. That's 50% of the total wealth. And so you look at this massive amount of transfer and this massive amount of tax. There's never been more in the history of the planet that we know of. In fact, there's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. And there's about 77 million in the U.S. alone. So you go, this is an epidemic or a pandemic of like tax pandemic, right? You're like, oh my gosh, like it's either going to go like to the government, who again, I think we can all agree are going to, no matter what side of the aisle on, they're going to waste it away pretty quick. Okay. Or it can be in the hands of the people. And so the freedom to be able to give and to the causes that you believe in most without having to give it all away to charity, the freedom to be able to pass it to your kids and keep it in your family, the freedom to be able to have time and energy freedom, right? So I serve baby boomers, I serve crypto millionaires, we serve billionaires, folks that want to get funds outside their taxable estate. In fact, we just helped a client move $5 million outside their taxable estate, which is saving 40%. One of the most things that people overlook is what's called the, or in general, they're looking at the capital gains tax. We call that the tiger by the tail. They're overlooking the elephant in the room, which is the estate tax, is death tax. So you have this thing called stepped up basis, which is
right now.
Yeah, it's under attack, right? And so 40%, you got to look at that. Like, where is it going to go? And if you can eliminate that, we can do that with a deferred sales trust. By the way, this changes things. So those are the people we serve.
That's awesome. How do you serve them?
So we serve them best by, there's a couple ways. A, one-on-one consultations. B, masterminds. C, we're coming out with our free book, education content, YouTube videos, podcasts, like literally trying to get my brain, all my secrets, the 10,000 hours in my brain, and trying to, as much as possible, get people confident on the legality of that so that they can create and preserve more wealth with the structure. B, as a trustee. But C, our most focus is on something called the Dream 100. And that's about trying to work with the best of the best in the financial advising industry, CPAs, mergers and acquisitions, cryptocurrency experts, influencers, people that are serving these ultra high net worth clients and equipping them with the strategy, right? Because there's one thing to start from ABC with somebody who may not know about it, but if I can help and equip their trusted advisors, and then we can work together on this, that's a highest and best use. And by the way, we're coming out with our book, and as a part of that, we have a guy named Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. Now, he's not an official strategic alliance, and he has not endorsed it yet. He may or may not. I can't even speak to that, but he has become on my book, and he is looking at this. And he did say when he was on my podcast that I might become a part of his dream team. And that's the goal, is to work with the best of the best, and then to be able to execute this for everybody. I want this to be a household name like the 1031 exchanges, like the IRA is, right? And that's really the mission.
Love it.
Excellent. All right. This one should be easy for you. What qualifies you to serve your customers?
Yeah. So that at one point I didn't know anything about this. Okay. And the biggest thing is like zero to like my parents weren't CPAs. In fact, my brother and I were the first ones to graduate from college on both sides of our families. Right. And so I had to start from zero, and now you see this other side, but it's only because of curiosity and hunger and passion for helping people. And so I want to equip you with the same thing from A to Z. I understand what it means not to know all this technical stuff, right? And I want to make it super simple. So I think that would be the best qualification, Tanya.
Yes.
That counts for sure. And finally is my favorite question, sort of clear on the front end, but how does it make their life better?
Yeah, besides having more wealth, right? More time, freedom with family, more time and location, opportunity to move. I think about some of these stories and some of the clients that are exiting, like they say, like, Brett, I thought I had to work for another 5 or 10 more years because I had to build up my business to X to be able to sell at Y after tax. But you're telling me right now I can exit. That gets me 5 or 10 years back in my life. Like that's the one thing we can't get back is time. Like we can go make money, we can go break money, we can go do deals, but we can't get our time back. And if there's a way to exit and get time and energy freedom, like to me, that's the most valuable part of the deferred sales trust. Not having to feel trapped, having freedom, being able to use your highest and best gifts, or whatever that might be in the season of your life, whether that be with your family, whether that be with your starting another business venture, right? It's not it's not going to, I like to say the deferred sales trust, you can't really put it in a box, because you could be an active entrepreneur and you want to go for it. You could be a passive wanting to retire. You could be somewhere in the middle. You could be, you could just be like, I want more time and energy and freedom with my wealth. And so let's check out the deferred sales trust.
I love it.
Yeah. And I love that term, highest and best gift.
It is. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is. Okay, Brett, how can prospects reach you if they have questions for you, or better yet, want to work with you?
Yeah, they can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And if you're one of those Dream 100s, you're serving ultra high net worth clients with what you do, you can go to experttaxsecrets.com if you want to be equipped with the deferred sales trust to level up your value proposition. And then you can check out our book that's coming out in about 30 days. Again, it's called Building a Tax Deferred Exit Strategy, the proven playbook for unlocking your ideal wealth plan when selling assets of any kind for yourself or your clients. We have some really, really smart people in here. And I had a couple chapters too, and it's going to be, we're just completely stoked about this, because this is 16 years in the making, really. My story, my journey to the deferred sales trust. And it's the playbook to help you overcome any false beliefs you might have about the legality, about the application, and it's coming out. So capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We also have YouTube, iTunes. You can search all that. We have a YouTube channel, which we have tons of content on as well.
Love it.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. My head is spinning, and in a good way, because I feel like I'm not necessarily the technical, person, but I understood almost all of that, which is fantastic, because,
sure.
you work so hard your whole life and you want that freedom. And this is the way to keep the money to give you that freedom. So
sure.
we appreciate your knowledge and your expertise, Brett. Thank you so much.
And I can tell you this, I have, since the first time I met you, I've been doing my research on it. A lifelong serial real estate investor. I've been investing since 1994. I'm a hoarder. I do not sell anything. I buy and keep, and I always have. But half of the reason has been because I didn't want to pay that tax. So I'll be knocking on Brett's door too at some point, because it really is a great. It looks like on the surface for sure that it is a fantastic tool where everybody wins, and you can't beat that. So.
You can't beat that. So thank you again, Brett.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Michael.
You bet. Okay, if you guys learned something today that helps you or inspires you, we encourage you to please like it, love it, share it, and ding, subscribe, so you can be the first to learn about the next episode.
Yep. Hey guys, it's about prosperity. That's why we do it. And when we say prosperity, we're not just talking about money. That's only a portion of the full 360-degree abundant life that we truly wish for every one of y'all. We know here at BrandFace that prosperity favors the bold. We say be bold, folks, especially with your brand, and especially in 2022. And thank you, Mr. Brett. Thank you, Ms. Tommy.
Thank you. We'll see you next time on Be Bold Branding. Thrive Real Estate Education is a proud sponsor of Be Bold Branding. Thrive is the only online free continuing education school in the country. To find out if they're participating in your home state, go to alwaysfreece.com. All courses are approved and certified by the Real Estate Commission.